One thing that I've realized about myself and about people in general is that we're incredibly irrational creatures. People are making bad decisions constantly. Now, I think this is a major reason why we have so many hilarious videos that show up online, but on the other hand, this is kind of an alarming idea. Because at some level, I'd like to be able to trust myself in the decisions that I make, but if I'm irrational, then I can't do that. Luckily, I think there's actually a lot that you and I can do about this. One of the major reasons why I'm interested and attracted to the idea of mental clarity is because it has a very direct and obvious impact on things like decision making, and decisions are how we shape our lives. There's nothing worse than feeling paralyzed or stuck.
In any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing you can do is nothing.
What I'm realizing though is that there's a lot more that goes into mental clarity than I originally thought. It's really not just making good decisions and having good habits. There's an emotional side to things. And honestly, I think there's a spiritual aspect to all of this as well. At some level, where you are right now is the result of all of the decisions that you've made up to this point, right? So I think it's a worthy goal to strive towards being as clear-minded as possible, whatever that means. And so that's why I've decided to start a new series that I'm calling Going Essentialist. I'm making this for selfish reasons. I want to be a better human being and I want to get more out of life. And today I'm going to focus on decision making because I've made some really bad choices in the past and it would be lovely to do that at least a little bit less often moving forward. So what I've done is I've compiled 6 techniques or things to keep in mind that I use to help myself make better decisions, or at the very least, give myself better odds.
Human decision making is a very complex topic, and there's just way too much to cover in one single video, so consider this level 1 on the subject. A primer for things before we delve deeper.
This really is not rocket science, but just like pretty much everything else in life, I find that simplicity can be pretty effective. To avoid poor choices, don't make decisions after lunch. Daniel Pink, in his book When, talks about this concept of a trough. It's something that we all go through in the day. It happens usually 7 hours after waking up. This is where we encounter a drop in energy levels, and this corresponds with really bad decision making. Now, of course, this depends on your circadian rhythm, but according to him, he suggests making decisions, especially important ones, in the morning when you're going through a peak. He goes more in depth as to why that is in his book, and I highly recommend it. If you're generally a yes person, if it's not hell yes, then it's a no. I got this from Greg McEwen, who got this from Derek Sivers. And he said that this is great criteria for people that feel scattered or overcommitted in life. I also think that this is highly applicable to people with a little bit of career momentum already, because it's important to protect your time, and also for calculated risks. We're all going to have reservations when we're diving into the unknown, but I think that if you have that feeling of hell yes within you, you've got to honor it. Now, of course, this doesn't work for everybody, and it doesn't work for every circumstance. This is not bulletproof. Life is nuanced. But I find that it helps me because I feel like I have a tendency to commit to things too quickly. Lately, people pitch me all kinds of ideas. I get sponsorship requests on a daily basis, and if I feel lukewarm about something, then that's almost certainly a sign that there's a better way for me to commit my time and energy and money elsewhere. If I just accepted every offer that came my way, even good offers, then first of all, it would be absolutely overwhelming, but I think I would also risk the trust that I built up with you guys, my audience. So I think that it's maybe not a bad idea to start with no and give yourself some time to sort of reflect on things before moving forward. And I never thought I would say that as the yes person that I am, but I think I'm starting to realize the power that the word no can wield. For big life decisions, make a pros and cons list. Here's how Ben Franklin did this. My way is to divide half a sheet of paper by a line into 2 columns, writing over the one pro and over the other con. You are almost certainly already familiar with this. According to him, he would take 3 to 4 days to fully compile this list, which I think that if you have the time is really not a bad idea. Here's where he takes things one step further than most of us. When I have thus got them all together in one view, I endeavor to estimate their respective weights. He would assess every pro and con and give them a value based on their importance to him. This makes perfect sense. It's really clever because it's true. Certain characteristics, certain factors have more importance to us in our decision-making process. And so they should be treated that way. The way he would do this is he would take one or more factors on each side that had what he felt was equivalent weight in his view and cross them out. And ultimately, the side that has more weight would end up winning, right? So you can do this with a yes or no scenario, or you can also apply this method to picking among a few really strong options. I usually do this when I have a big life decision to make, like for example, when I'm trying to pick the next country that I want to live in for 3 months. The way I'll do this is I'll lay out the top 3 to 5 contenders and write out the pros and cons for each one. I try to think about the full scope of the experience that I want to have. It's not just about the climate or the things that there are to do nearby, but do I speak the language? Do I want to learn the language that's spoken in that country? Is it a part of the world that I'm familiar with? This is very personal to me, but I am very attracted to Latin culture, not just in Latin America, but also Southern Europe. I feel very comfortable in that way of life. I'm a little guy, I speak with my hands, I'm really loud, and so I just fit really well. I find that if I have spent a long time away from Latin culture, that I really miss it. And so that particular factor holds more weight. This is powerful in the way that journaling is powerful. You might think that you can see everything clearly in your mind, but there is no replacement to laying everything out plainly in front of you. To avoid catastrophic choices, take 20 minutes before making the decision. Based on my research online, I found that it takes anywhere between 20 and 60 minutes to calm down from the fight or flight response. Now, you're almost certainly already familiar with this, but here's a quick refresher. It's a physiological reaction that occurs in response to a perceived harmful event, attack, or threat to survival. Your adrenal gland starts pumping the hormone epinephrine, also commonly known as adrenaline, into your bloodstream. This results in things like quicker breathing, quicker heart rate, and increased blood pressure. When you're going through this, you are literally not thinking clearly. You have a hormone in your bloodstream that is preventing you from being rational. This is the worst time to make a decision, and anything that you can do to create space and time to cool off will almost certainly help. So whatever that is for you, if it's a stress ball, if it's taking a walk, if it's breathing deeply, even if you can't do 20 minutes, 5 minutes, or even like 90 seconds can really make a big difference. For me, it has occasionally been the difference between saying something really stupid that I totally regret and holding my tongue. For decisions that aren't urgent, sleep on it and sleep well. In the book, Why We Sleep, which I recommend, I've already spoken about, and recently I've been seeing recommended all over the place, Matthew Walker talks about all the incredible benefits of sleep. I'm going to create a piece going way more in depth on this, but I wanted to mention a couple of things that stood out to me. The author talks about how in REM sleep, our brains go through this process of connecting the dots between distant and unrelated thoughts and memories. This is an amazing way to find creative solutions because you're seeing things in a new light. And beyond that, he talks a lot about the link between proper sleep and emotional well-being. Once again, I think that well-being, especially emotionally speaking, can really help you, at the very least, avoid bad decisions. It's all connected. For better decision-making in general, get to know your own psychological biases. I recommend learning about psychology. I just find it fascinating to learn about how I operate on a day-to-day basis. It turns out that our hardware is highly imperfect, and that's what things like marketing seek to exploit.
Here are a few examples. Loss aversion refers to our tendency to strongly prefer avoiding losses over acquiring gains. The endowment effect describes a circumstance in which an individual values something that they already own more than something that they do not. Anchoring is one of my favorites. It's the common human tendency to rely too heavily or anchor on one trait or piece of information when making decisions. And finally, negative bias, which is the tendency to give more attention and weight to negative rather than positive news.
Look, I'm not an expert on any of this, and I'm not exactly sure what the best way is to apply all of this information. However, I do think that awareness is a great place to start. Even just knowing about these things can potentially help you prevent traps. I think it's really fun. I've made it a game, kind of, to look for and spot psychology in action. It's very satisfying to spot something that was meant to trick me and effectively avoid it. I want to give one more piece of advice that I'm currently trying to apply in my own life right now. I recently heard that there is nothing in life that is worth rushing for, and I have yet to find an exception to that rule. I hope that you found this helpful. I know I packed a lot in here. Originally, the idea was just to create a little piece with some tips, but then it dawned on me just how important decision making is. If you enjoyed this, I'd love for you to stick around, and there's a variety of ways that you could potentially do that, like following me on Instagram, signing up to my newsletter, or even just subscribing to this channel. I also want to give a major shout out to all of my patrons. You guys are seriously helping me make this a reality, and I am just so grateful for your support. All right, thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.